All right, good morning and welcome to our stream on this Thursday, October 25th. We're glad you're with us here on our live stream inside our newsroom, which you can see behind me here at Fox 5 DC in Washington. Obviously, we've been covering this string, this bomb scare, the series of threatening explosive devices mailed to prominent Democrats yesterday, and this really unfolded all throughout the day. So today we're going to keep a close eye and make sure we bring you the latest as we have any more information or video coming in. The latest in this story is that packages were sent addressed to actor Robert De Niro outside of his production office in Tribeca, New York City, and then also to former Vice President Joe Biden in Delaware. So more on that to come. Here's a summary of what happened yesterday and what we're looking out for today.
Manhunt now, and there are reports this morning that former Vice President Joe Biden may have been among the targets. Who sent these packages, and are there more out there? Investigators are now looking into the possibility that an eighth package may have been sent to former Vice President Joe Biden's home in Delaware before it was returned to sender. They are now trying to track it down to confirm. But we do now know that explosive devices were sent to a group of prominent Democrats.
We will not rest until we find this, stop these hazardous devices from being mailed.
Investigators in New York had to evacuate the Time Warner building after CNN received one of the packages targeting former CIA Director John Brennan. But this search is now nationwide, with police also looking at a mail facility in California. And all of this has raised questions about the tone of our politics.
And by the way, do you see how nice I'm behaving tonight? This is like, have you ever seen this?
President Trump at a rally last night in Wisconsin talking about changing his tone, but also promising to find out who's behind the packages.
The federal government is conducting an aggressive investigation, and we will find those responsible, and we will bring them to justice, hopefully very quickly.
It is a troubling time, isn't it?
One of the intended recipients, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, said it was time for the country to come together. But this was also breaking down right along party lines, with many Democrats blaming the president and some on the right questioning whether this was a false flag operation by Democrats ahead of the midterms. Now, the good news, meantime, for investigators is that these devices were found intact, and that may yield quite a bit of evidence. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
We're extremely angry, upset, unhappy about what we witnessed this morning, and we will get to the bottom of it.
With the crosshairs being set on some of his fiercest political critics, President Trump was careful to keep politics far away from his response to the potentially deadly mailings.
The safety of the American people is my highest and absolute priority. The full weight of our government is being deployed to conduct this investigation and bring those responsible for these despicable acts to justice.
In a surprise move, opening an event on combating opioid addiction, the First Lady added her condemnation of the terrorist acts.
We cannot tolerate those cowardly attacks, and I strongly condemn all who choose violence.
With the midterms just 13 days away, the rhetoric on both sides of the political aisle has become highly charged.
Michelle always says that, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
Any guy that can do a body slam, he's my kind of...
And while he is headlining a campaign rally in the hotly contested state of Wisconsin tonight, the president today urged Americans to set aside their political differences.
We have to unify. We have to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
But with so much at stake on November 6th, political comity likely won't last long. President Trump continues to blame Democrats for the migrant caravan and illegal immigration. But he did find common ground with one Democrat, then Senator Barack Obama, in what he said in 2005.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country.
President Trump tweeting last night, quote, "I agree with President Obama 100%. The president also sending a strong message about his intent to defend U.S. sovereignty, tweeting, "We are a great sovereign nation. We have strong borders and will never accept people coming into our country illegally." President Trump is in Mosinee, Wisconsin tonight, where Republican Governor Scott Walker is in a fight for his political life. Republicans are worried about turnout in the Badger State, so watch for the president tonight to turn up the political heat, despite his calls this afternoon for unity. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox News.
Today, the NYPD and all of our law enforcement partners responded to reports of a suspicious package at CNN.
The NYPD says the device sent to CNN headquarters resembled a pipe bomb and arrived in an envelope filled with white powder.
Responding officers identified a device that appeared to be a live explosive device. NYPD bomb squad responded, secured the device, and removed it for investigation.
Shortly afterward, an alarm went off in the 55-story building located in Columbus Circle, a busy and popular tourist destination in Midtown. Hundreds of employees from the cable news affiliate and everyone else in the building forced to the streets below.
Coming down with the elevator right away, and the police is waiting for us, and they said you guys have to leave the street.
Officials say the device here resembles packages intercepted by the Secret Service sent to Hillary Clinton and President Obama, as well as one sent to Democratic donor George Soros. Both New York Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo declaring this an act of terror.
Terrorism only works if you let it work. What they are trying to do is scare us and destabilize us.
Elected leaders in New York asked if the current political climate and President Trump's frequent attacks on the media played a role.
At a time where there's a lot of hatred and division, it does not make sense to exacerbate it. Let's just say this to all public officials of all partisan affiliations. Don't encourage violence.
And that, of course, was Mayor Bill de Blasio speaking on that situation. And right now, we have some live video coming in of de Blasio. I'm sure he's mentioning these events and talking more about yesterday's incidents. Quick mention here of the FBI. They are very much engaged in this investigation. The FBI at Quantico down here in the DC DMV region, of course, receiving all of the packages that these Democrats, these prominent politicians received, and the FBI in Delaware focusing more on the one addressed to Joe Biden this morning. So let's go over to Bill de Blasio right now speaking at some sort of healthcare event.
Con sus vidas en paz. Si tienen información sobre este asunto, llamen de inmediato al 1-888-57-PISTA. So please, everyone, I'll just conclude on this, and then we'll go to talking about what we're here for today in Queens. But any information you have, share it with the NYPD. And as I said, in a few hours, we'll be having a press conference at One Police Plaza to update everyone on the details of the investigation. With that, let me now turn to Susan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Susan Latham, and I'm a longtime resident of Jackson Heights in Queens. My husband and my teenage son and I live just a few blocks away from here. Elmhurst Hospital is our local community hospital, and over the years, I've had several reasons to come and visit the emergency room by myself, with my son, with elderly neighbors.
All right, looks like the mayor was mentioning that just briefly at the top of his remarks and did say there will be another official press conference today coming up shortly in this afternoon, so we'll be sure to bring that to you here when we get that in live. But I want to turn over to the story, the continued search for the missing teen, Jayme Closs, in Wisconsin. Here's an update on that story, and then I'm going to show you the latest information from authorities on her disappearance, the 13-year-old who went missing after her parents were found shot in their home in Wisconsin. Family members actually spoke at this press conference yesterday, and it's the latest that we have on this. So here's the story, and then the press conference detailing what they know.
As most of you know, we're looking for a 13-year-old girl, Jayme Closs. It's now day 8.
Wardens from the Wisconsin DNR led searchers out for the day, speaking in large groups to comb the vast woods and off the landscape. Some find climbing through buckthorn, others poking around the turkey farms on the hunt for evidence in the case. Many came from Minnesota, taking a work day or taking advantage of the time. To do as one volunteer explained,
I have a daughter the same age, so, you know, it's kind of strikes close to home.
Authorities have reported Jayme Closs was in her house last week when her parents were shot and killed. The Barron teenager was gone by the time law enforcement showed up, and she hasn't been seen since, believing she remains in grave danger. On Monday, a possible break. Investigators releasing these images of two vehicles spotted around the Closs house on nearby surveillance cameras at the time of the horrific crime. And even though nothing major was found during Tuesday's searches, some items of interest were taken, giving volunteers a glimmer of hope.
But they did flag several things. I don't know what they were. But anything, I hope they found something that can lead to something.
And another briefing is expected to be held here outside the Barron County Sheriff's Department at 4 p.m. In the past, the sheriff says he only talks when there is something of substance to pass along. In Barron County, Wisconsin, Christina Palladino, Fox 9.
His toe began to swell and get very red, and so my husband took him earlier.
Continued support and prayers for the safe return of Jayme. We'd like to brief you on our investigative efforts so far. This remains an active investigation, and we follow up on every tip. We've received over 1,550 tips from our community and across the nation. We have closed 1,250 of them. Sightings of Jayme, you should call 911. If you're on Highway 8 at the time of the call, early Monday morning, October 15th, between 12:30 a.m. and 1:30 a.m., we are asking you to call into our tip line so you can help in this investigation. I want to thank the over 2,000 people that came out yesterday to help with the search. This is truly an uplifting experience for myself and the rest of the law enforcement agents working this case. As of today, no items of evidentiary value were recovered during our search, but our evidence teams continue to look over those items. Also at this time, we're reviewing the area that was being searched, and our investigative team, lead team, is looking to see if more areas need to be searched. At this time, we will not be searching any more areas. Next, I want to introduce Jennifer Smith, aunt of Jayme, for a short statement.
We would like to thank the community for their continued love and support of our family during this extremely difficult time. It was amazing to see the outpouring of love at the vigil the other night for our sweet Jayme. Jayme, not a moment goes by when we aren't thinking of you and praying for you. Your family and friends miss you so much. Your sparkling eyes, your bright smile, your soft little giggles. Your dog Molly is waiting for you. She's sleeping in one of your sweatshirts and will only eat chicken. Grandpa needs new artwork on his fridge. Aunt Susie wants to go jogging in the park with you, and I want that girl's shopping date we planned. I even brought your favorite iced coffee with me today. To whoever may know where Jayme is, please contact the Barron County Sheriff Department. Jayme, we need you here with us to fill that hole we have in our hearts. We all love you to the moon and back, and we will never stop looking for you.
Thank you, Jennifer and family, for your words to help bring Jayme home. Next, I'd like to introduce Special Agent in Charge Justin Tolomeo for a statement.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you to the Closs family relatives for those very moving words. Again, I am Justin Tolomeo, the Special Agent in Charge of the FBI's Milwaukee Division. The FBI wasn't a large part of the Barron County community prior to Jayme's disappearance, but we truly feel like we are now. Like everyone here, we want to bring Jayme home. We stand together with our state and local law enforcement partners working day and night to find Jayme. To encourage anyone who may have details about Jayme's disappearance to come forward. We are now offering a reward of $25,000 for information that directly relates to her location. So please, if you have information, we want to hear from you. Call the tip line, 1-855-744-3879. I'd like to end by thanking everyone in Barron County and across the nation for your support for law enforcement and helping us find Jayme.
Thank you, Special Agent in Charge Tolomeo. I can't thank the FBI, DCI, all of our local partners for the efforts put forth to find Jayme. We continue to have 200 law enforcement officers on the ground every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to solve this crime. This crime doesn't get solved without the partnerships of both law enforcement and this community. So we ask you to continue to call that tip line with any tip, any change in behavior, anything out of the ordinary to help us bring Jayme home. That tip line again is 1-855-744-3879. I'll be able to take a couple short questions.
Sheriff, do you believe yesterday the registration process of those volunteers, was that standard operating procedure, or is there a belief that the killer could be among the community?
That is a standard operating procedure for record keeping, and it becomes part of the investigation.
Sheriff,
Yes.
you know, we've had now 2,000 that were here yesterday searching, and a lot of searching has been just here in the area that we have seen. I guess if you mentioned how much of the search has even gone to other states, and since we're this far north, has it gone to other agencies outside the United States?
No, the only thing outside of Barron County has been tips that we follow up on from local FBI agents, local DCI agents, and local law enforcement have assisted us across the nation.
Sheriff, are you any closer to identifying details of a person or a suspect?
At this time, we are not, but as I said, there's 200 people in this building behind me combing over evidence still, looking at things that were picked up yesterday, looking at video, continuing to review that 911 call, and I know we keep going back to that, but any tip can bring Jayme home at any one time, and I can't stress that enough.
Sheriff?
Yes.
Following up on that other question, there are billboards in other states. Do you have any reason to believe that she has been taken out of this area?
We don't know that answer. That's why we made this a nationwide search. And we can't thank the billboard companies enough. The gas stations have her picture up, the trucking companies. We've done radio shows, Sirius radio, trucking shows. Anybody out there with any information should call our tip line.
Sheriff, any specific evidence that, you know, there was obviously a very, you know, emotional plea there directed to Jayme. You have continued to say she's alive, she's out there. Is there any just shred of evidence that has proven that point in the last 10 days?
You know, I won't comment on that, but we believe Jayme's out there. Jayme's endangered, and we need to bring a 13-year-old girl home.
Sure.
Yes.
The FBI guy, please. No question. So you're saying through all the forensics that you've done up to this point, you've not been able to come up with a single suspect, and if not, what is your next step forensically to try to establish, maybe come up with a suspect?
Well, that's a joint answer because the forensics are being worked by all agencies involved, and we continue to look at that information and assess it, and when we have a viable avenue, we will follow it.
So no, you're saying no suspect?
I'm not saying what we have, sir. I'm saying what we're doing.
But no suspect then?
Again, sir, I'm not saying what we're having. I'm saying what we're doing.
Sheriff, any credibility to the conversation this woman had with some locals in town 2 weeks before Jayme's disappearance at this gas station? It was printed in a couple of online publications.
We continue to follow up on leads just like that, and I'm not able to comment on it.
Anything from
Yes.
the cars?
Can you curious why your office has at least still pictures of these cars that you've been discussing, if not the actual surveillance itself?
Our evidence team felt that those photos that we released were what we were looking for because we had such a large make and model year span that they wanted to release stock photos. That came from our evidence team.
Yeah, Sheriff, anything on those vehicles?
There's a lot of tips coming in on the vehicles. I would say probably since we released that, the last uptick in tips have been due to the vehicles and locations and sightings.
But don't
yes.
have 2 vehicles.
Today, we saw some items being taken out of the house, one of them a mattress. What happens to that? Does that become evidence?
Yeah, we had another evidence team go back out to the scene today to make sure we didn't miss anything. As we said, we keep combing over evidence, looking for new things. We had a new team, a new set of eyes come in today and go over that house one more time to make sure nothing was missed. They did remove some items, and those are being processed to see if there's any new items of evidence.
Have you been able to determine whether, at this point, through the evidence you gathered, whether it's somebody known to Jayme or not known?
As soon as we know that, you'll be the first to know.
Sheriff, that's a follow-up on that question about a new team that's coming on in for evidence that was taken out today. How much does it help to have a fresh set of eyes? Take a look at that scene to come on in that hasn't been seen for the last 9-10 days.
Well, and that's why we did that today. That's exactly the reason why we continue to bring fresh eyes, and when we have to rotate people out. We've had people here for days, and that also brings them up to speed with the case. So when that comes in, we look at that. We said, let's try this piece of evidence, and then our evidence team goes over it.
Sure.
Yes.
The other day, you said that the other day it was 1,300 tips. Of those, 1,100 had been closed out. If you had a new number today for of the 1,550 tips, how many have been?
1,250 have been closed out.
Sheriff, have you closed off any further looking at the terrain around the area? I mean, weather's going to become an issue now. Are you done with that as far as what you think might be?
We're reviewing both the terrain and the weather. That's part of our meetings that we have with our evidence team, and we continue to look at things like that.
But do you think you're done with that?
At this time, our evidence team and our tip don't require us to go out and search, but they continue to review that with every new tip that comes in.
You talked about cars on the road that you want to hear from. Is there a direction of travel, anything else that you can?
We asked for both directions. Thank you for that clarification. Again, we're looking for anybody that was on Highway 8 on that early Monday morning from 12:30 to 1:30 to help us with that investigation. Again, you're not a suspect. You're maybe had seen something on the side of the road that you don't realize you've seen. That's why we ask for any tip that come in. Please use that tip line. Changes in behavior, changes in driving, changes in vehicles. So, but thank you. We'll give you updates tomorrow via Facebook. And again, the reward portion will stay out here for your photos. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And when he says tomorrow, he means today, because that was actually late yesterday, the latest update from officials in Wisconsin. So if we get anything in, we will definitely share that with you. Obviously, the reward up to $25,000. This case, certainly a tragedy and really shocking the nation, and just kind of waiting to hear more and expecting hopefully the best for this little girl. So I want to jump over now to the same press conference with Mayor Bill de Blasio. He's there. Some more details may be coming in from yesterday's incidents. As he just mentioned, they will be holding an official press conference coming up in the afternoon with all the officials there right in the middle of Manhattan, as they did yesterday, with all those details. So let's kind of jump into this healthcare event that he's talking at for now while it's still live.
Patients who come to Express Care but need higher levels of emergency care are expeditiously taken to the ED for appropriate level and a level of service. As that's an element of the care that you will get at our Express Care that you might not get at a freestanding urgent care. The emergency department is right there, and we will make every effort to ensure that the level of service is appropriate. I should add, and I say this proudly, that there is no better place in Queens for trauma care, for stroke care, for cardiac care, for any critical care than New York City Health and Hospitals Elmhurst. Today, we've seen over 600 patients in the first few weeks of our soft launch, and I'm really delighted, frankly, to say that uniformly, when patients walk into that space, their faces light up uniformly, and I think at the end of their care with a 96% satisfaction rate so far, it speaks volumes to the value and the importance of the service. Allow me just to give you a flavor of how Express Care has worked with 3 patient anecdotes. One woman, a young senior who experienced significant ear pain, tried to go to see her primary care provider, but he had left, or she had left earlier in the day. So this was an after hours time. So she came to the emergency department. She was escorted to Express Care, where she was seen in an expedited fashion quite quickly. And this was the kind of care and the appropriate kind of issue that Express Care is prepared to take care of. To be clear, her problem was not life-threatening, but there was a real need to ensure that she got evaluation at the time that she felt that she needed to. We also saw a man who was in his 20s who had cut his hand and a job at his job one evening and had come to us for the repair of his injuries. He needed medical treatment. This was not the kind of care, though, that you rush to the front of the line in the emergency department. We were able to repair his laceration quickly and that night, and on his return visit for suture removal, it was a great personal pleasure to hear him say how satisfied he was with the service that he'd received on both occasions. We also saw a young mother who, in her 30s, who was a technician at a doctor's office, coincidentally, who had been exposed to contaminated fluid and needed evaluation and quick prophylaxis to prevent possible infection transmission. She was not in pain, but was in need of expedited evaluation and treatment, and Express Care was perfectly suited for this kind of intervention. The one consistent truth in these cases I've presented is that these are all people who came to us after 5 p.m. at an hour, usually that primary care providers may not be available, but they understood that these were services that could be provided at a lower level of care, not in an emergency department, but again in an urgent care. And we're pleased to see that people have already established that that's a kind of service that they're happy to take advantage of. Our patients have been extremely grateful, and we very much look forward to, after this exposure, the growth in the numbers of people who will visit. So thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us and to share this occasion with us.
Thank you, Doctor. Those are definitely examples of success. I think you're right. As the word spreads, more and more people are going to take advantage of the service that's being provided here at Elmhurst. I want to say there's been a lot of energetic support from our elected officials for this idea of providing faster service to their constituents. And I want to thank them for advocating always for Elmhurst Hospital and making sure it's getting the support it needs. I want to acknowledge and thank two of the representatives who serve in Albany representing people of this community, Assemblymember David Wepern and Assemblymember Jeff Aubrey. Thank you both very much. And now turning to the Queen of Queens, I want to thank her. We're in the middle here of Queens Week, and there's always a long agenda for all of the deputy mayors, all of the agency heads, pursuing an agenda that is richly dictated to us by the borough president. And this is the kind of innovation I know you believe in for your borough, and you've been fighting to make sure that the resources flow to Queens and people have access to the care they need. So my pleasure to introduce Borough President Melinda Katz.
Thank you. I do want to point out, yes, it is Queens Week, and loving it, just so you know.
Yes.
So the mayor and his deputies and the commissioners have been all around this borough over the last few days, not that they aren't the rest of the year, to be honest. We have great relationships with your commissioners and deputies, and we appreciate that. But I also appreciate the fact that you're here today despite what's going on in the city. And I think that that shows a great leadership. People want to know that you're doing it and that they see you and that you're leading it. And so I thank you for still being here today despite what's going on in the city. Many of you know that I have been working for quite a few years on figuring out where to put freestanding ERs in the borough of Queens. And the reason is because our emergency rooms are just simply overcrowded all over the city. And there's 9 working hospitals. We have many clinics that are great in the communities. But it's our emergency rooms that are consistently overcrowded. And when we lost 3 hospitals quite a few years ago now, I feel like it was yesterday, but I know it was quite a few years ago now, our emergency rooms seemed to spike in preventative health care as well as emergencies. And so I am quite impressed that H&H and this administration really foresaw the innovation that could happen by putting these almost like freestanding ERs, but urgent care clinics in the hospitals that are now standing. It just made sense. And so I'm excited by it because it will help to relieve the overcrowding in the emergency rooms. And you're right. Look, I have a 7 and a 10-year-old. If they have an earache in the middle of the night, I'm like, listen, just wait till the morning, right, if you can. Because you don't want to sit in an emergency room for 5 hours, 6 hours, and not because people aren't doing their jobs well, and not because the doctors and the volunteers and the staff is not responding amazingly. It's just there's a lot of people. And in Queens, as many of you know who have heard me speak over and over again, 190 countries, 200 languages, it is the basis of our strength here in Queens, that diversity, being the most diverse in the world. But it also presents challenges in emergencies when people walk in and can't be understood, need to find translators. And, you know, the H&H does it so well. And I do believe that this clinic is going to help alleviate some of the crowdedness in the emergency rooms. So I'm excited about this first step towards overcrowding in the emergency rooms.
Towards addressing overcrowding.
Towards addressing, not keeping it. Yes, towards addressing. That's why you're the mayor and I'm borough president. But, you know, it also relies heavily on support from our local elected officials. You know, I mean, I've put almost $22 million into the hospitals and clinics throughout the borough of Queens. And in this hospital, much in conjunction with our Assemblyman Aubrey, whose district we're in as well, and before the finance chair, David Weprin. But it takes a lot of communication, a lot of leadership, and a lot of cooperation to face it. So Elmhurst Hospital, thank you for the work you do. We appreciate the expertise that you bring to the borough of Queens. We appreciate the challenges you face, and you do it with style and grace every time, because people are happy with the services that they receive here. And I must admit, Israel, you came on board and things just, you know, kept moving. And we want to thank you for that leadership that you have presented here to Elmhurst. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. She's next up to bat. And as I turn to Councilmember Carlina Rivera, I want to say City Council has been really supportive of the work that we've done over the last years to turn around health and hospitals. I think everyone will remember a few years ago, the budget situation was really troubled. And a lot of policies at the federal and state level were unfortunately having a negative impact on health and hospitals. And it took a lot of work and a lot of innovation and a lot of reform to put this organization back on a firm footing. And the City Council was very supportive of making the investments necessary to bridge to this day. So, Councilmember, I want to thank you and all your colleagues. And I know how much you're a believer in these kind of innovations that allow us to serve people at the grassroots better. My pleasure to introduce the chair of the Committee on Hospitals in the City Council, Councilmember Carlina Rivera.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very happy to be here in Queens during Queens Week. And thank you to all my colleagues and for all that you do here at this hospital. I know this is the busiest emergency department in the region. And I know that as the chair of the Committee on Hospitals and as I'm touring every single H&H facility in the city, I know how busy this one is and how hard you work to serve every single person and the languages that walk through the door and the stories and the different socioeconomic backgrounds. And I think that that's why our public system is so important. And that's why I wanted to be sure that I was here today. And one of the biggest concerns that I see, and a question, quite frankly, that I get all the time is how are we going to respond to the transformation of healthcare? And what is the future of healthcare in this city? And I think that this is really an important model as we look towards how we can provide the best care. So we want to specifically look at how to move patients with non-life-threatening conditions out of the overburdened emergency rooms and into these primary and urgent care facilities. And I think that the network that you are building here in terms of being able to provide primary care information is really what I think Dr. Katz, his vision for H&H is really focused on. And that's making sure that people have primary care physicians and that we're looking at how to work together as a city. So, I mentioned how busy this hospital is, and clearly this urgent care clinic will ease the overcrowding in Elmhurst, where there's unfortunately really long wait times. There are long wait times. There are long waits just to get an appointment. And I think that that's become the norm. And I think it's best that we start looking at what is the better business model for H&H and for the people of New York. And it's appropriate that it starts right here in Elmhurst. So clearly this is a benefit. It's estimated it's going to help 45,000 New Yorkers over time. I see that as we continue to have more of these clinics citywide, I think this is really kind of the future of how we should provide care, especially in a non-emergency situation. And so I know it's going to be one of my focuses on the Committee on Hospitals to make sure that we're all working together. I'm looking forward to actually maybe bringing a hearing here to Elmhurst with when it's appropriate, and of course with all your coordination, and making sure that people can see what these facilities are like, how great the Express Care Clinic is, and eventually looking at how do we expand that model, how it's working, and how we can change and make it better. So I want to thank you all for your dedication. I want to thank everyone here, and I'm excited for the new clinic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, we're going to take questions from the media on this announcement, and then we will turn to other topics. Anything on this announcement on the Express Care Clinics? Anybody? I know there's a lot on their minds today. Okay, I'm going to give you a chance. Going once. Media questions, Express Care Clinics. Going twice. Okay, let's go to other topics. Other topics. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you've been briefed on the DOI report on the on the Commissioner of DOI. It found some fairly serious charges against him, that he might have misled City Council in testimony, that some of his investigators gave inconsistent testimony to the investigators of that probe. Just wondering what you make of it, and what steps you might or might not take in response.
I've received a briefing, but I have not read the full document. I've read a piece of it, but not the full document. I need to do that. As you know, I've been under the weather much of the last few days, so I have not had as much time. But I will do that, and after that, we'll think about what the meaning of it is. But I can't give you a conclusion yet. Other questions? Yes.
What are your thoughts on the demise of the New York Wheel project on Staten Island? What do you expect to happen at the site going forward? Obviously, there's been some construction. They've laid the pedestal. Mm-hmm. Who's responsible for moving that, and what are you going to tell people on Staten Island who are maybe worried they might have like a half-built thing there?
Look, I don't know all the technicalities of what we're going to do to prepare the site for other development, but I'm sure we can do that on an expedited basis. It's a really important site for Staten Island. The outlet mall is opening soon. That's going to be, I think, a big boost for the economy of Staten Island. Here we have another site that can be a difference maker. And one of the things I want to do is talk to the borough president and the council members and all the elected officials and stakeholders about what would have the biggest positive impact on the future of Staten Island. What would help to build the economy and to create jobs. And look, it's unfortunate that this didn't work out, but we still have a tremendous site to work with under public control. And we're going to make it something great for Staten Island. But that's a process we now have to go through with local stakeholders. Yes?
What advice do you have for city mailroom workers who are opening mail with the possibility there could be an explosive or other dangerous item in there?
To be very cautious. As you heard yesterday, NYPD has provided a lot of guidance, literally to tens of thousands of different businesses and organizations as to how to handle their mailroom operations in the times we're living in. I think the abundance of caution is the approach people should take. If anything seems out of the ordinary, as I said, if there's a chemical smell, if there's any wires showing, if something doesn't seem right, don't open the package. Alert the NYPD immediately. Get guidance from them. I think that people need to exercise caution. The packages we've seen so far have followed a very, very specific pattern, but that doesn't mean everyone will follow the exact same pattern. That doesn't mean there won't be copycats. So the best thing is to be very cautious, and if there's doubt, reach out to the NYPD immediately. Yes.
Mayor, just given that we've learned about Vice President Biden this morning and Mr. De Niro, do you have any concerns yourself about possibly being, I don't want to say a list of potential targets, but that's the best description of it. Any reason to worry that you may find yourself receiving one?
Look, my family and I a long time ago understood that we're living in a time where unfortunately some people target public figures. This is not the first time we've experienced something like this as a city or as a country. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. So I worry for my family always, but I know the NYPD is providing tremendous protection. And, you know, it's something that it follows the same point I made about how the people of the city are reacting. I'm not going to be paralyzed by this. No one in public life should be paralyzed by this. No one in the media should be paralyzed by this. I gave a lot of credit to CNN for the fact that they kept all their programming going. They did not let this throw them off. I think that's how you defeat terrorism. We've got to go about our lives. We've got to show that we're resolute. So am I aware of it? Sure. Am I concerned for my family? Absolutely. But I'm also confident that really extraordinary work is done every day by the NYPD to protect us all. Thank you. Go ahead, Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, your administration testified before the City Council this week on the commercial rent bill. They raised some concerns. What do you plan to do in order to help this problem if you're not supporting the bill that's before the City Council? Do you have any other plans to deal with the problem of retail vacancy in the city?
Gloria, it's one of the thorniest problems that we face because it has to date defied a really clear public policy solution. And I've said this at a whole lot of town hall meetings to everyday New Yorkers who raised the concern. This one is challenging because the things that have been talked about historically that might work, like zoning changes, we really haven't seen the results there that we hope for. You could do a major subsidy program, but I don't think that's right given the other needs of the city and the people of the city. So, you know, what we've tried to do is work any piece of the equation that could have a positive impact. We obviously lowered the commercial rent tax for parts of Manhattan that were particularly affected. We've reduced the amount of fines that small businesses are receiving by over 40%. We're providing legal assistance to small businesses in their lease negotiations. We're helping small businesses to get tax breaks that they may deserve and other low-interest loans and other opportunities. But it's still not solving the core problem. Some of this is the changing consumer patterns that we're all experiencing. And some of this is obviously the extraordinary rental costs that we're seeing now that we didn't see in the past. But so far in the proposal that's before the City Council, the impulse is a good one, but we haven't been able to resolve that there's an approach that's actually legally sustainable and really will make a difference. The other thing I would note is the vacancy tax idea. I still think that's a very live option. That would require Albany approval. But what I like about it is, I'm going to give you an example, let's say 3 years. If a landlord keeps a storefront vacant for 3 years, that's really having a negative impact on community. They have a right to do that, even under a vacancy tax scenario, but there should be some kind of sanction. There should be some kind of penalty for doing that, and that money can be put to a positive use for the community. So that's something I'm hopeful that we can make some progress on in Albany. Who has not had one? Yes.
There were some protests this week by homeless activists wanting you to increase the set-asides in your affordable housing program to 15% for homeless individuals. Why is that not an option for you?
I just disagree with it. I've talked about this consistently publicly. I want to say it. I think the affordable housing plan works for the people of the city because it's for everyone. It is meant to reach working class people, middle class people, low income people. We've heard throughout the last 5 years various demands to make the plan more about one community or another. I've said it's just not what I believe in philosophically, and I've been transparent. From the time we introduced the plan, we've talked about how it will serve a broad band of New Yorkers and how we're trying to achieve economic diversity in as many communities as possible. And I think that's what works. We do vigorously get folks who end up in shelter opportunities for affordable housing. It's been over 90,000 people in the last 5 years have benefited. So the other thing I've said to the advocates is those numbers, that actually happened. That's not theory. That happened, and that will continue to happen. But I don't believe in setting aside more of our growing supply of affordable housing for just one piece of the population. I think it has to be a broad approach.
Given the record number of homeless and the fact that you yourself have said there's been a shift in why people are homeless in terms of jobs and, you know, the economy.
Yes.
Why wouldn't there be an effort to help the group that some people believe are suffering the most?
Because I think the approach that, first of all, remember what we're doing for those folks. One, stopping people from becoming homeless, also in record numbers. The number of evictions has gone down markedly because of free legal services. The amount of people getting subsidies to stop them from becoming homeless has gone up. You know the history. The watershed moment was in 2011 with the cancellation by the city and the state of the Advantage program. That's really when the homeless numbers...
Presidents, we have Barack Obama, his residence, some suspicious package was en route to that residence. Also the Clinton residence in upstate New York in Chappaqua, New York. Also Eric Holder. Maxine Waters, a congresswoman, received 2 suspicious packages. And then also this morning, the breaking news that actor and activist and also very outspoken Democrat Robert De Niro, suspicious packages intercepted at his tribe offices, at his restaurant, I should say. But again, the news right now, we don't know if all of this is connected, but out of an abundance of caution, we do know that the Cannon office building has been evacuated. Workers there told to evacuate, go to their designated spots. We're looking at a picture now, though, of the U.S. Capitol. Of course, this is all related, but this happening in the Cannon office building. We're staying on top of this news. We want to let you know everything that happens. And right now, this is the latest. Again, not necessarily connected, but out of an abundance of caution, of course, we do tell you what the developing news was earlier today with these suspicious packages and now this evacuation. We will break in with any more developing details as they warrant. But for now, we return you to your regular programming.
Get up out of chairs. Oh. Your shirt gets untucked. So I take that whole shirt and I stuff it into my panties like this.
For those voices of hate to come forward, that is a fact. And it's coming from the top, and that makes it particularly unfortunate. But the hatred's been there, and we have to address it at its root, which is really all of our responsibility. So, no, I don't think it's right to connect the dots so perfectly until we know all the facts. I do think it's right to say the president really should change his tone, show respect for people of different beliefs, show respect for the news media, stop encouraging violence. That said, he will not change. I'm happy to say what he should do, and I have no illusion that he'll change. Last call, Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, I want to go back to the emails that your administration released a couple of days ago. We had a story last week that showed that your administration early on devoted a lot of time and taxpayers, salaried employees, time into making sure that the plans that you had for your national agenda were underway. Do you have any, do you want to respond to that at all? And do you have any regrets about that, considering the many needs that there are in the city and having used time and taxpayer-funded resources to focus on something that hasn't...
No, and I mean, I feel like we've had this discussion many, many times. I'm a little confused why folks keep bringing it up when it's been answered. I'll answer it again. Do I think that I personally made every decision as well as I could have in retrospect? No. Do I think there were mistakes in the concept and implementation? Yes. But I don't have a regret about what we were trying to achieve. Again, guys, you can ask it another 1,000 times, but I would really ask you to dig deep and be objective here. The things that affect the people of the city, so many of them are controlled in Washington and Albany. This is a fact. And if we left the political circumstance the way it was, we would continue to not get the help we need. Go across the board the issues we're talking about. The Affordable Care Act reaches 1.6 million New Yorkers. If it were gone, their lives would be made worse. The infrastructure spending that we used to get from the federal government that we don't get anymore. If the federal government had a substantial infrastructure plan, New York City would benefit greatly from it. I go down a whole list of things. Those all come back to the political debate. They all come back to what happens legislatively and what happens in elections. I think it was right to put forward an agenda and try and galvanize support for it in a way that actually could have led to change. And we had some examples that worked. I used the example of the highway bill in 2015, where mayors around the country gathered together to push for an increase in spending. We actually got it. That's had a very positive impact on New York City. So, no, I do not regret trying to change the debate and trying to get the actions we needed on the federal level that actually could have helped the people of the city in ways we could not just do for ourselves. Last one.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on the agreement to provide unlimited sick time for 9/11 first responders who were in a handful of unions who weren't covered. So your understanding that that's going to be brought into covering people who weren't also unionized? I know there's a population of them in the city, and they're looking for unlimited sick time. And what took so long? Why did it take so long to reach this agreement?
Look, I on the specific question of the non-unionized, I want to be careful because I have not been briefed on that approach. But our goal is to make sure people get the care they need, period. This is a situation rooted in pain. Let's say this from the beginning. The people who were affected by 9/11 need our support, period. A lot got support, but it turned out there was a group of people who weren't getting it. As that issue became clearer, our goal was to settle it in a way that made sense through collective bargaining. It did take a while to work out. There were some thorny details, but we got there. Everyone said from the beginning, we got to get there. We got there. And we're going to make sure that people get the care they need. So I think it just came down to things that had to be worked through. But our intention has been to make sure people get what they need, and they will.
What would you say to the people? I mean, I was at a press conference earlier this week that sort of at the same moment as it was announced that this deal had come together, and people were still kind of angry that they felt, they shouldn't have had to hold press conferences or they shouldn't have had to ask. What would you say to the first responders who feel that way?
Well, again, from my point of view, once it became clear there was a need going unmet, we started working to fix it. So I want to make sure people get all the care they need. I'm not happy if anyone went through any kind of trouble. That's not what I would have wanted for them. This issue emerged over time. I'm thinking back over the years. It was not front and center a few years ago. When it came up, we resolved that we had to fix it, and now it has been fixed. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I'm like so I gotta go down to the auditorium and set up. No, all right, I need to set up. Very well. What is it? Probably, he run out of here, right? He wants, he's going somewhere else. Yes. So, I took downstairs.
letting them come this way, but now they're not letting them go that way. Like, this is stupid. They really weren't prepared for. Alan just wanted to be in the action. Whereas the rest of us are like, why?
Are they going to put tape up now that we've been here for 10 minutes?
It was up, it came down, it may go up again. They got plenty of tape.
They can't tell if they want the tape up or not.
Still have about 300 meters. Meters? Who measures the meters?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Shit. The rest of the world? God.
We were supposed to go metric in 1980.
They couldn't figure
I
out
remember
decimal points.
studying it in school in the late 70s.
They couldn't figure out
No, we figured out how to go from liters to gallons, gallons to liters, meters to yards, and all that crap. Because the teachers were like, "Oh my God, yeah! By 1980, everything is going to be metric here."
What?
It never happened.
As I told you.
Never happened.
Your prior colleague had it to the rearview mirror.
I mean, isn't it over? What are we doing?
Hey guys, he's gonna go pull the pole, so you gotta come
Okay,
back.
then go south of the what?
That pole. He's gonna go to that pole right there.
That pole.
Can we just go back to our office?
Yeah, let's just leave. This is so
I'm
uneventful.
on the other side of Cannon.
I don't know, it's not sure. I have no idea what it is.
I know, but you can go south or north.
Well, you're gonna run out of tape. It's coming. You gonna make it? Don't make it.
So go south, and then come around the parking lot, and walk around the tape.
Made it. More tape is being thrown around a lot.
Like, I know you can't go through the... Guys, why are we still out
There's a lot of
here?
tape going on.
Because it's much nicer than the Rayburn.
I'm just confused.
I'm gonna get back closer. Anything happens.
You'll probably be the first to know. Oh my god, it's like so terrible. They told me not to smile.
Who released Alan?
Alan realized that there's no action
He
here.
got
so
escaped.
he's
He's
going
escaped.
You got nothing to do over there yet, either.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, what I find really funny is they have it taped off down there, but yet we're 150 yards up here.
It just...
Hey, you know?
Oh, this is over.
How long has that been up? Anybody knows? Was that up when we got down?
No, they've all made their own little islands.
Next is going to go from here.
They've got another one up at the other corner there.
That guy didn't think you were very funny.
Which one?
You were like, you're going to run out of tape.
No, not it did look like he was going to run out.
He was just like...
Friendly reminder.
Out. No, but it's not like they are. It seems very. It doesn't seem like it's anything significant per se. But we don't have there.
It'll be like this until they realize. That I don't. I really.
We heard it.
Okay, then you heard it. No more.
Well, the thing is,
No, we had to. I just paid for it, and so we were gonna go.
I just think this guy's getting happy with the tape, though.
Yeah.
Seriously, I
Like
think
getting tape happy?
something to do because he went back to this. You want to go back to the ship? Yep. Everyone except Alex.
Well,
She wasn't at the
I was
stakeout.
just excited to eat my lunch.
Should have brought it with you. It's not against the rules. How many people are still left over there?
Hopefully somebody can my computer.
My camera guy's there, John.
Did someone say a lot?
I think Fox had 2 cameras over there.
Yeah. Story working here, 2 cameras.
It's not like anything else happening. That's this happening in there.
That way or that way?
Who's this guy? Anybody recognize this guy?
Yeah.
I walk around the table.
It's only suggested.
So you figured out how to get around?
About to run a 5K.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
nice.
they're still hitting it off.
Oh, no, I know.
Because I'm carrying a lot of equipment.
Roll like Paul Thorson. Monopod.
Everywhere. Yeah, monopod doesn't really work as well with these big guys.
You agree with that? Monopod.
Depends on the level of professionalism you have.
By the way, Sinclair, everyone.
All right, right now a ground shot outside of the Cannon House office building on Capitol Hill. That is the building that houses House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi's office, among, of course, many other representatives in Congress. And that is being evacuated right now. This is the one shot that we do have, and we tried to effort this information as soon as we did get it. Police have said they don't know what triggered this alarm, but it was an audible alarm that evacuated this building. So I'm working my sources right now to kind of find out from some other people who I know work on the Hill if they know anything about this or what exactly is going on. But we do have this shot here from Fox of what is happening. You can see some of the construction in the background and lots of things going on, but we're hearing it's possible they may be evacuated for quite some time. They may not get back into this building for a little while this afternoon. So we'll keep you updated as long as we do have more information and video from this evacuation. Obviously, everyone on high alert due to yesterday's incidents. The string of packages that have been sent to some of the prominent Democratic leaders and politicians, both in New York and here in D.C., notably to former President Obama's residence in Northwest D.C. So we're keeping a close eye on this breaking situation, and we'll bring you anything that we do have as it comes in.
Copy. Thank you.
That was like the first
I'm going with him.
Nice to be outside. On the way back, I'm going to stop for lunch.
Yep. Go in through here.
That's only for the I'm sending a feedback to LA. Yeah, they're giving fair enough. Michelle here as well. I mean, heard good things from Daily, but like not even it's like really. Yeah, I called NCCR so they know they're getting live pictures and they started to record. Yeah, so I'm the one that pulled it in. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for escorting him.
Thank you, sir. Seriously. He had a press pass. I granted you access to everything. Even press?
I think so. I leave a wife all day just for the hell. You're still standing here. Yeah. Oh yeah, Reuters goes to the world. They want to know what's right. People in Indonesia might want to see this Capitol building. Yeah, absolutely. I have to turn it on whether.
Where are you?
Go back and get lunch. Come on with us. Go in this. Go around the side. Go in that door there because it's easier for this.
Oh, sure.
And grab some lunch on the way back from here. Sounds like a beautiful plan. I like it.
We'll be nothing in the street.
After spending his youth in Mission, Texas, Walter Lizama is determined to get back.
I study over there. I did my elementary, middle school, high school. I played football for the country.
Lizama will try to enter again. Others will apply as refugees. When you arrive in the States, what will you say to the Border Patrol when you get there?
To give me the opportunity to enter the country.
Stories of poverty and crime may generate sympathy, but are not enough to obtain legal status. When you get to the border, what do you say?
I have no idea. Only that I'm going there because I'm going to work to get ahead.
Most caravan members are unaware of the bare minimum needed to qualify for asylum.
We come from a country where there's a lot of violence, and we want a safe place for our children.
That may be true, but President Trump says the caravan will not be allowed in.
It's the same thing they told us the last caravan we took up there.
Initially, the caravan planned to stay together. Now, organizer Luis Cruz says many will hop the cargo train known as the beast.
We will start walking from here, and then we'll think about see if we can board the train.
The train stops in Arriaga, about 60 miles north of the caravan's current location. From there, it heads to Texas, Arizona, and California. Those who make it will face the U.S. Border Patrol.
Yes, very scared. Because such a big walk in vain? Yes, I'm scared.
So for perspective, in that last caravan in March, 93% of the initial credible fear claims were approved or passed their initial test. People were not deported. That same rate was to apply to this group. Thousands of Central American families would also be released in the U.S. pending final judicial review. In southern Mexico, William Rogers, Fox News.
The search for clues in the grisly Istanbul killing of Jamal Khashoggi intensifies. Investigators searching the Saudi Arabian consul's residence in a 75-foot deep well where it's suspected the dismembered body of Khashoggi might have been stashed. This is Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the man some suspect of masterminding the crime, made his first public comment since the killing. At a financial conference many have shunned due to the death.
The crime was really painful to all Saudis. And I believe it is painful to every human in the world. It is a heinous crime that cannot be justified.
Still, in the wake of the incident, one of his principal supporters backed away a bit more. The prince is running things over there more so at this stage. The crown prince, he's running things, and so if anybody were going to be in, it would be him. As more clues turn up, including video of a Saudi diplomatic car spotted in another possible dumping ground for Khashoggi's body.
We are determined not to allow a cover-up of this murder and to make sure all those responsible, from those who ordered it to those who carried it out, will not be allowed to avoid justice.
The investigation was also discussed in a phone call between the Turkish president and the Saudi crown prince. As more countries expressed outrage at the crime, the UK joining the US in banning Saudi suspects in the murder from travel to their country.
We condemn the killing of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the strongest possible terms. And after his disappearance, we made clear that Saudi Arabia must cooperate with Turkey.
CIA Director Gina Haspel reportedly spent 7 hours with her intel counterpart during her trip to Turkey this week. She is said to have gotten access to all the evidence in the Khashoggi case, including audio and video recordings. More than enough, it would seem, to give President Trump a full debrief. Not a pretty tale. In London, Greg Halcott, Fox News.
We're still weeks away from the official start of flu season, but this year the virus is getting started early.
The flu season is here.
Several states are reporting clusters of cases. Some are relatively minor. However, officials in Connecticut confirmed dozens of people are being treated at various hospitals. They say the flu has actually been active in the state since August, and it should be viewed as a warning sign.
No reason for panic, but yes, concern. Legitimate worry about the flu because it can be a killer.
Connecticut and North Carolina are among states already reporting flu-related fatalities. The virus has also killed a child in Florida who did not get the vaccine and had no underlying health conditions. This early activity, plus the severity of last year's flu season, has health officials urging people to get vaccinated now.
We know that our vaccination rates for children and for adults last year in the United States were not high enough.
So far, the vaccine being offered is an effective combatant against the virus.
The flu viruses that are starting to circulate right now appear to be well matched to the vaccine that we've chosen to give this year. So that's a good sign.
Last year's flu season was one of the worst on record. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says 80,000 people died. Many of them were children. In New York, Brian Yennis, Fox News.
A 7th child has died as a result of the severe viral outbreak plaguing a New Jersey long-term care facility.
We are all completely and utterly gutted by the knowledge that 7 precious young children have lost their lives.
There are currently 18 confirmed cases of adenovirus, striking the ventilator unit of the Passaic County facility that provides care for medically fragile children. For victims with severely weakened immune systems like these patients, the virus can be dangerous and even deadly. In healthier individuals, the virus typically causes mild to severe cold and flu-like symptoms such as sore throat, pink eye, fever, and coughing.
Unfortunately, this strain of adenovirus number 7, its effect on medically fragile children with severely compromised immune systems can lead to the outcome we're seeing. It is a strain that particularly affects communal living arrangements.
The virus is spread by close personal contact through the air and by touching infected surfaces, then touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. Officials say the first signs of the virus showed up on September 26th. The center alerted the health department October 9th. While most of those victims were under 18, at least one victim was a young adult. It's unclear how the virus started, and the investigation into the outbreak is ongoing. Until the spreading stops, the facility has been instructed not to admit new patients.
For us, 4 weeks are needed without an additional case reported before we declare the outbreak over.
In New York, Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
One lucky ticket beats seemingly impossible odds, matching all 6 numbers in Tuesday night's Mega Millions drawing. That winner or group of winners will be taking home the entire Mega Millions jackpot.
Tonight's Mega Millions jackpot is a record-breaking $1.6 billion.
But it turns out the payout is not the record-breaking $1.6 billion everyone anticipated. It's the second biggest, with the prize totaling $1.537 billion. Falling just short of the record amount.
When it gets larger, it draws a lot of people who normally don't play Mega Millions or Powerball or any lottery game. So when those people start buying tickets, it increases the jackpot, but it also makes it harder for lottery officials to estimate what the prize will be.
Lottery officials came in $63 million shy of the prize purse they estimated, which is just a little more than 4% off.
They guessed wrong, just by a bit, of how many people would play the game, and that ended up skewing the figures.
While we don't know who purchased the lucky ticket at a convenience store in Simpsonville, South Carolina, we do know the store owner also hit it big, getting $50,000 for selling the ticket.
Feels good. 50,000 is a lot of money.
The winner or group of winners has 180 days to come forward, but we may never find out who they are. South Carolina allows its winners to remain anonymous. In New York, Jackie Ibanez, Fox News.
Yeah. We've got 2 years, 1 month, and 16 days.
Elizabeth Osborne and Devin Dixon are counting the days and years.
My husband and I had a 10-year-long addiction with crystal meth.
Their addictions to meth landed them in prison, left them homeless, camping from city to city across the country. But no matter how many times they tried to stop, they just couldn't.
Relapsed 3 times while in Colorado. The last time was shortly after we got Alex.
Alex is part border collie, part red heeler, and apparently part healer, that's with an A instead of an E, because shortly after they brought him into the family,
we found out very quickly that Alex is horrified by the smell of methamphetamines coming out of someone's skin or being smoked.
Devin didn't quite believe it at first, but then he got high and
he went to go try to pet Alex, and Alex tried to bite him in the face.
It was a first from Alex.
No form of aggression out of him previous.
But it was also the first time they'd exposed their dog to meth. So they left Alex, sobered up, came back.
And immediately Alex was a different dog. He stopped shaking, he stopped hiding in back corners.
Every time they got high, Alex got aggressive and just wasn't himself.
After the first time we relapsed with Alex, I broke down crying the next morning. Sorry. It was either Alex found a new home or we stopped using meth. And there's absolutely no way I could have gotten rid of Alex.
So 2 years, 1 month, and 16 days later, they're glad they made the right choice.
He's very cute.
4-year-old twins Betty and Kaylin have seen Coconut the snow leopard cub at the Sacramento Zoo since he was born in May. They love seeing him play.
And he jumped over his mom, and the mom jumped over him.
Wednesday morning, the twins are on the other side of the glass, watching Coconut go through eye surgery. Veterinarians from the Sacramento Zoo and specialists from UC Davis are focusing on care for a congenital eye defect.
What happens is when he tries to close his eyes, there's kind of like a little notch defect where he can't completely close his eye.
This can allow for hair to get into his eye and cause irritation. Dr. Ray Wax says this is something common amongst snow leopards born in captivity. Since the animal is under anesthesia to correct the eyes, vets will take preventative measure on his legs. The 5-month-old was born with something called swimmer syndrome,
where his legs splayed out and he wasn't able to really support his weight well.
Throughout the 2.5 hours of surgery, more and more people came to check in on the endangered cub.
Dr. Wax says this is exactly what he likes to see when they're conducting surgery. He wants the community to come out and see the work they're doing on their animals.
We really want them to connect with these animals. That is one of the purposes of the zoo, is for these animals to act as ambassadors and get us all really interested in protecting these guys in the wild.
Soon, Betty and Kaylin will get to see Coconut playing again, and if all goes well, he'll get to see them much better too. At the Sacramento Zoo, Pedro Rivera, Fox 40 News.
Well, this has become a nationwide manhunt now, and there are reports this morning that former Vice President Joe Biden may have been among the targets. Who sent these packages, and are there more out there? Investigators are now looking into the possibility that an 8th package may have been sent to former Vice President Joe Biden's home in Delaware before it was returned to sender. They are now trying to track it down to confirm. But we do now know that explosive devices were sent to a group of prominent Democrats.
We will not rest until we find this, stop these hazardous devices from being mailed.
Investigators in New York had to evacuate the Time Warner building after CNN received one of the packages targeting former CIA Director John Brennan. But this search is now nationwide, with police also looking at a mail facility in California. And all of this has raised questions about the tone of our politics.
And by the way, do you see how nice I'm behaving tonight? This is like, have you ever seen this?
President Trump at a rally last night in Wisconsin talking about changing his tone, but also promising to find out who's behind the packages.
The federal government is conducting an aggressive investigation, and we will find those responsible, and we will bring them to justice, hopefully very quickly.
It is a troubling time, isn't it?
One of the intended recipients, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, said it was time for the country to come together. But this was also breaking down right along party lines, with many Democrats blaming the president and some on the right questioning whether this was a false flag operation by Democrats ahead of the midterms. Now, the good news, meantime, for investigators is that these devices were found intact, and that may yield quite a bit of evidence. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
We're extremely angry, upset, unhappy about what we witnessed this morning, and we will get to the bottom of it.
With the crosshairs being set on some of his fiercest political critics, President Trump was careful to keep politics far away from his response to the potentially deadly mailings.
The safety of the American people is my highest and absolute priority. The full weight of our government is being deployed to conduct this investigation and bring those responsible for these despicable acts to justice.
In a surprise move, opening an event on combating opioid addiction, the First Lady added her condemnation of the terrorist acts.
We cannot tolerate those cowardly attacks, and I strongly condemn all who choose violence.
With the midterms just 13 days away, the rhetoric on both sides of the political aisle has become highly charged.
Michelle says that, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
Any guy that can do a body slam, he's my kind of...
And while he is headlining a campaign rally in the hotly contested state of Wisconsin tonight, the president today urged Americans to set aside their political differences.
We have to unify. We have to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
But with so much at stake on November 6th, political comity likely won't last long. President Trump continues to blame Democrats for the migrant caravan and illegal immigration. But he did find common ground with one Democrat, then Senator Barack Obama, in what he said in 2005.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country.
President Trump tweeting last night, quote, "I agree with President Obama 100%. The president also sending a strong message about his intent to defend U.S. sovereignty, tweeting, "We are a great sovereign nation. We have strong borders and will never accept people coming into our country illegally." President Trump is in Mosinee, Wisconsin tonight, where Republican Governor Scott Walker is in a fight for his political life. Republicans are worried about turnout in the Badger State, so watch for the president tonight to turn up the political heat, despite his calls this afternoon for unity. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox News.
Today, the NYPD and all of our law enforcement partners responded to reports of a suspicious package at CNN.
The NYPD says the device sent to CNN headquarters resembled a pipe bomb and arrived in an envelope filled with white powder.
Responding officers identified a device that appeared to be a live explosive device. NYPD bomb squad responded, secured the device, and removed it for investigation.
Shortly afterward, an alarm went off in the 55-story building located in Columbus Circle, a busy and popular tourist destination in Midtown. Hundreds of employees from the cable news affiliate and everyone else in the building forced to the streets below.
Coming down with the elevator right away, and the police is waiting for us, and they said you guys have to leave the street.
Officials say the device here resembles packages intercepted by the Secret Service sent to Hillary Clinton and President Obama, as well as one sent to Democratic donor George Soros. Both New York Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo declaring this an act of terror.
Terrorism only works if you let it work. What they are trying to do is scare us and destabilize us.
Elected leaders in New York asked if the current political climate and President Trump's frequent attacks on the media played a role.
At a time where there's a lot of hatred and division, it does not make sense to exacerbate it. Let's just say this to all public officials of all partisan affiliations: don't encourage violence.
Small businesses are receiving by over 40%. We're providing legal assistance to small businesses in their lease negotiations. We're helping small businesses to get tax breaks that they may deserve and other low-interest loans and other opportunities. But it's still not solving the core problem. Some of this is the changing consumer patterns that we're all experiencing. And some of this is obviously the extraordinary rental costs that we're seeing now that we didn't see in the past. But so far in the proposal that's before the City Council, the impulse is a good one, but we haven't been able to resolve that there's an approach that's actually legally sustainable and really will make a difference. The other thing I would note is the vacancy tax idea. I still think that's a very live option. That would require Albany approval. But what I like about it is, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say 3 years. If a landlord keeps a storefront vacant for 3 years, that's really having a negative impact on community. They have a right to do that, even under a vacancy tax scenario, but there should be some kind of sanction. There should be some kind of penalty for doing that, and that money can be put to a positive use for the community. So that's something I'm hopeful that we can make some progress on in Albany. Who has not had one? Yes.
There were some protests this week by homeless activists wanting you to increase the set-asides in your affordable housing program to 15% for homeless individuals. Why is that not an option for you?
I just disagree with it. I've talked about this consistently publicly, and I want to say it again. I think the affordable housing plan works for the people of the city because it's for everyone. It is meant to reach working class people, middle class people, low income people. We've heard throughout the last 5 years various demands to make the plan more about one community or another. I've said it's just not what I believe in philosophically, and I've been transparent. From the time we introduced the plan, we've talked about how it will serve a broad band of New Yorkers and how we're trying to achieve economic diversity in as many communities as possible, and I think that's what works. We do vigorously get folks who end up in shelter opportunities for affordable housing. It's been over 90,000 people in the last 5 years have benefited. So the other thing I've said to the advocates is those numbers, that actually happened. That's not theory. That happened, and that will continue to happen. But I don't believe in setting aside more of our growing supply of affordable housing for just one piece of the population. I think it has to be a broad approach.
Given the record number of homeless and the fact that you yourself have said there's been a shift in why people are homeless
Yes.
in terms of jobs and the economy,
Yes.
Why wouldn't there be an effort to help the group that some people believe are suffering the most?
Because I think the approach that, first of all, remember what we're doing for those folks. One, stopping people from becoming homeless. Also,
calls. It looked like he did strike one other vehicle a short time ago, and right there, another crash. He is doing whatever he can to evade police at this time. Driving up on the right shoulder there, almost up on the embankment, southbound side of the 101 freeway, right through Universal City here. Universal Studios would be off to the left side of the freeway here. We'll see if he decides to get off the freeway, because this stretch of the 101 is corked up big time through the Cahuenga Pass. That's a stretch of the 101 that makes its way down out of the San Fernando Valley into Hollywood. Let's see what he does here. It looks like he was almost going to use that on-ramp to exit the freeway here, but he's driving really erratically, high speeds. We saw at least two instances where he did strike a vehicle. Nothing too bad, fortunately, but he's got a lot of traffic up ahead. There's that unit tracking him right behind. Not a good area, obviously, to try to initiate that pit maneuver. Looks like he may be getting off at Lankershim, but here we go. Maybe he's going to tag him. There's an yeah, good opportunity there. The pit maneuver works there. That officer had that opportunity. Bam, he rams into the police cars. Now, this is a very dangerous situation because they just don't know who they're dealing with, if this suspect has a weapon or not. Because of the glare, we're seeing the fog burn out. We can't really see what's going on. Officers are giving him a strict command to what to do. Hands up, hands clearly visible. We need to see your hands. And then they'll approach the vehicle. They'll tell him to exit the vehicle if he can, if the car isn't damaged enough, or if that one cruiser isn't actually up. He's coming out and laying down, doing exactly what he's been told here. And we do understand that there's just the one suspect, the driver. Again, an assault with a deadly weapon suspect inside that vehicle. So they will cuff this guy and then clear the car, make sure no one else is inside that vehicle. Just as I was saying, guys, that not a good place to do a pit maneuver because of all that traffic. That officer saw that opportunity on that ramp where there wasn't any cars nearby. He took that chance. He spun him out. The suspect still tried to get away, driving at the officers, ramming him. He'll be cited for that as well. But yes, a good ending to this pursuit. And fortunately, we didn't see any real nasty collisions, but he was doing whatever he can, the suspect, to get away from police. But he is now being taken into custody. The car is clear. It's a code 4, but there's a lot of traffic here. This is the 101 freeway southbound right in the Cahuenga Pass. Again, this is a southbound side of the 101 freeway here through the Cahuenga Pass by Universal Studios. You can see a pursuit came to an end here. Reporting live from Skyfox, I'm Rick Dickert. Back to you in the studio. And again, if you're watching, this is Rick Dickert up in Skyfox, where we just watched the dramatic end to this high-speed pursuit and assault with a deadly weapon suspect being pursued across the San Fernando Valley on the 101 freeway, the 134, then up the 170. He exited quickly at Magnolia in North Hollywood on the 170 freeway, but then he did a 180, and he got right back on the freeway southbound. As we take a closer look at this suspect here, trying to evade the Los Angeles Police Department. He's being checked out here. He is in cuffs. The LAPD took the opportunity right at the exact moment that they could to initiate that pit maneuver. In this type of traffic, we rarely see anything like that, but because this suspect was driving off to the right and onto an off-ramp near Lancashire, we saw that opportunity come. There was no other vehicles right ahead or immediately adjacent to the suspect. So they conducted that pit maneuver. It was successful. They spun him out. He still tried to evade police, and that's when he rammed one of the LAPD vehicles down below. It did not appear that any vehicles were badly damaged, but he did strike at least 2, possibly 3 vehicles. Again, they're taking some personal property into custody here. And again, officers are speaking to this suspect, an assault with a deadly weapon suspect here. We'll widen out a little bit now and see how this is impacting the freeway. I believe the main line of the 101 is open. This activity is still just on the ramp, but people are still going to slow down. And that 101 south, as we saw during the pursuit, was really backed up. Yeah, it's open, but still moving slowly by Universal Studios, by Universal City, coming up from the Hollywood split where the 101, the 170, the 134 freeways all meet. Once they put this man into one of the LAPD vehicles and take him off to jail, they'll be able to clear this ramp. It's just the ramp here at Lancashire that is blocked. This assault with a deadly weapon suspect, this pursuit, comes to a somewhat successful end. Hopefully nobody was injured in those minor collisions that we did see. It appeared that the vehicles weren't badly damaged, but they were either sideswiped or struck at this point. Reporting live from Skyfox, I'm Rick Dickert. Assignment desk.
All right, well, a good car chase is always exciting here in the newsroom. For this one, high-speed police chase in Los Angeles, and that was the voice of one of the KTTV Skyfox reporters finding that chase and following it down along the highway and getting you all the details on that pit maneuver and everything that they were doing there. So always exciting times there. A police pursuit with an armed suspect in the car. And we're going to take you back to the Capitol Dome for now. Stay with us for more as we break more news if we get more video in or more information about any of those packages. And if anything new comes in today, we'll bring them to you right here on Fox 5 Live from DC.
are assigned and or living, and who is complicit that they know about in these crimes. So this lawsuit is designed to disclose the names and identities and the histories of the offenders and the top officials complicit across the state. And when we stood together, was that 3 weeks ago, Tom? We released a report involving the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and at that time there were over 300 offenders, Stacy? 307 offenders that we identified in the Los Angeles Archdiocese report. And we also knew, as we do today, that those that we disclosed publicly then, as those we disclose publicly today, are only half the story. So we're here today to sound the alarm again, but do it in the Bay Area. Because we know that the Catholic bishops in the Bay Area, San Jose, Oakland, and San Francisco, have all, in conspiracy with the other California Catholic bishops, chosen to maintain a very grave public hazard called legally a nuisance. But it's a really serious hazard or peril, and that is predator priests that they know about, that they have not told the public, that they have not told the parishioners, they have not told the people, they have not told the police. And so, as we stand with Tom and the other folks here today, we also, can I have that report? We also have posted on our website at andersonadvocates.com, and this report is an assembly of all those offenders and a brief history that we were able to discern from public records to date. And in it, we have, let me have that picture of the bishops there. We have identified in each of these, yeah, let's do that. We have identified in each of these dioceses and under the charge of each of these bishops a number of priests, predator priests, accused by name. And in each of these dioceses, we know the bishops have not. We know in the Archdiocese of San Francisco, Archbishop Cordileone has not disclosed a list of accused offenders. Has not. The disclosure that has been made is 0. We also know that in the Archdiocese of San Francisco, that our report, the one we're releasing today, identifies 135 accused priest offenders. 135. The question, of course, and the answer being sought by this suit is, how many more do you know about? Because these are just the ones that we know about. We also know that he and the diocese, Archdiocese of San Francisco, reported, as they were required to in the early 2000s to John Jay College, that they had at that time 56 names that they knew about in 2004. 56 in 2004. How many more have they discerned since? And how many more did they choose not to report then? In Oakland, we have the same situation. We have Bishop Barber. In this report, we have identified 95. We also know that the Diocese of Oakland disclosed that they were aware of 24 in 2004. And we also know from history that that was underreported. So the question is, how many more are there that he knows about? And that his office is holding? And how many more files do they have? Of how many offenders are they now keeping secret? We know that no disclosure has been made in Oakland. None. We also know that the former bishop went on an apology tour, going around to various parishes offering apologies to the survivors. And as Tom Emmons stands here with as a survivor, he's not seeking apology, he's seeking the truth. He's seeking the truth about what these bishops and archbishops know, and so that the communities can be protected. And that apology tour to him and to the survivors with whom we stand and work doesn't make it. We also know that Bishop Barber, spokesperson, said that my guess is that all the names are public knowledge, and we're not hiding anything. But they haven't been made public. And we had to discern this report. And then we have the Diocese of San Jose. And there we have now a Bishop Patrick McGrath. He's actually been there for 20 years. And this applies to all the bishops, current and past. And we know in the report that we have released here today, there are 33 identified offenders. And we also know that that diocese reported to John Jay in the early 2000s, that they recently released the names of 15 offenders. That was just, when was that, Joel?
Last week.
Just last week, they released the names of 15. We have discerned 33, over twice what they reported. We know there are more. We know they're kept secret, and they know they're being protected there. We also know that as we assemble the data that we've released today, and we scrutinize the conduct of each of these bishops and the choices they've made in engaging a conspiracy of silence and secrecy, because that's what it is, that half of those we've identified here, most of which are pictured, we don't know their location. We couldn't discern it from the public records. And we've been on the hunt, but we haven't discerned it. So we not only don't even know all the names of all the offenders and those that are complicit in the offenses, but we don't know where they are because they're not telling. And so this lawsuit is designed to require them to do it. Quite simply, require them to do it. So Tom Emmons, you started this 3 weeks ago. You stood with us in Los Angeles, and you stand with us here today. What say you to the Catholic bishops in California, and particularly these three bishops that is the focus of our attention and concern?
Well, let me first say that this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done as a victim and a survivor, but it's also the most necessary thing that I could do for the people of California. Again, my name is Tom Emmons. I am a victim survivor. As I said in my press conference in early October, earlier this month, I'm an empowered survivor. What happened to me should never happen to any child, should never happen ever again. And as I'm speaking to you today, there are secrets, even more secrets than the 30 names we're talking about here. There's more And until every little corner of every secret archive is uncovered, we're never going to get to the truth. So I'm here as a survivor, but I'm here for survivors. Because I guarantee you, after today, there's going to be dozens of phone calls of people coming forward saying, yes, I know that priest. This happened to me. It's not easy to do this. It's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. And so I hope and I pray that just this little moment in time actually makes a difference for somebody. Thank you.
And Tom Emmons, the survivors that you urge to come forward, also give assurance to, as we will and do every day, to every survivor that comes forward and shares his or her secret with us and makes a decision to be part of the child protection movement and work with us, we protect the identity of. And 98% of the survivors with whom we work and stand, and with whom I've worked and stood for 35 years, remain private and their identities protected, so that you do not have to worry that you have to stand as Tom Emmons has chosen to stand here today. Tom Emmons, the priest that offended you came from another state, was placed in Los Angeles, and is now dead. Right. And we have determined that of those we've listed in this report, there are approximately 130 of them that are deceased. So it may beg the question then, why today do you and your firm, working with these courageous survivors, choose to make their names and their identities and their histories known the way you are? And what do you say to that question, Tom Emmons?
I was by myself for 40 years, and I know that there's other survivors out there that are too afraid to come forward, or they just don't know the truth, or maybe that name is buried in a secret archive somewhere. So it's really just to help them to come forward, because it's like I said, it's very difficult to do. It's almost impossible to do.
And Tom Emmons, you suffered alone, thinking you were the only one for many, many years.
Correct.
And after you went public 3 weeks ago, you got a call from another survivor who thought he was the only one, didn't you?
Actually, it was even before then.
Okay.
It was just a little bit of work I did on my own. I had posted some pictures of the priest on my Facebook page, and I got an email from another survivor, same priest, but he was assaulted in the church, and he's in a completely different place than I'm at. He wants to remain anonymous, but again, he's just one person, and minimal effort, I was able to help him.
So simply put, what you want to have happen from this case that you've brought and the information we're sharing today is first have the truth known and have the kids protected.
Correct. Because if we're not protecting the children, there's no point to having children at all. If you can't protect them, you can't guide them, you need to protect them.
And to encourage survivors to share their secret and know that they can do so without having to go before microphones, but can become a part of the child protection movement the way you have chosen to be.
Yes.
We say to you, Tom Emmons, thank you for your courage and your words.
Thank you.
That's really important. Pat Wall, come forward. Former priest.
Yes.
Of the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, and in Minnesota, you worked. And have currently work for our firm in assembling this information. Tell folks what the significance of this information and what it is.
Patrick Wall, and thank you for coming today. This is a secret that's been sitting in front of us in open sources for decades. That's what drives me personally nuts, that if one of these bishops, who's 2 of the 3 are trained canonists, we're just using open source documents. We're going through criminal filings. We're going through civil filings. We're going through news articles. We're basically scraping the internet of what is publicly available right now. This is not magical.
So the 263 priests accused and identified in this report from the 3 dioceses is from public information that you, as a predator priest hunter, as you've been called, and our office have assembled, right?
Yeah, and some of these are old scribbled notes from 20 years ago I've kept. Obviously, like Mike Texar. I kept a hold of him.
But that's public data.
All public data. Okay. All public open source data. The thing that's most scary, to be honest with you, is that of this group, 133 are alive, as I understand it, and we have a hard time finding out where they're at. So from a risk analysis standpoint, we can't tell you if they're working for Child Protective Services somewhere for some county. We can't tell you if they're a teacher. We can't tell you if they live next to a school. We don't know if they've married into a family with a whole group of kids and that spouse doesn't know the history of their former priest husband. There are all kinds of scenarios that we've run into the last 30 years where a predator priest, who is usually extremely smart, can burrow and bury themselves into a system and no one will ever know that they're there. But they will continue to groom, they will continue to do the crimes, and they will continue to cover it up. And that's why there is a public interest and a danger that people need to know about these guys.
So you're still on the hunt, and there's more work to do?
Yes, and there's a whole team of us that can take credit for making this happen.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, Mike Reck, Joe George Jr., come forward, will you? Mike Reck and Joe George Jr. are both lawyers working with us on this case and these cases in the Bay Area. And first, Joe George Jr., you've been working with us for some time and engaged in this field. What is it that you want folks to know about why we're here today and what needs to be done?
Hi, thank you, Jeff. Joe George Jr., I'm an attorney working with courageous survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And we're here today because the bishops won't release the information that they have. They choose to continue to hurt and endanger children. And it's our calling, Jeff, to do what we can to expose the truth, to help children, to make sure that survivors know that they're not alone, and that it's not their fault, and to expose the truth and hold those who hurt children and protect offenders, to hold those people accountable.
Thank you, Joe George Jr. Mike Reck, you are the lawyer that signed this complaint representing Tom Emmons with us that you filed in Los Angeles from our Los Angeles office. And what say you to why we're here and why you signed that complaint and are working with our team to help Tom and the other survivors?
Thanks, Jeff. My name is Mike Reck. I'm an attorney in our Los Angeles office, and we filed this complaint on behalf of this man because it's a public safety imperative. The reality is that the bishops of this state cannot and should not be trusted. Tom Emmons' complaint is groundbreaking because what it does is it reaches statewide to every point of jurisdiction within the boundaries of California and recognizes that this is a pervasive and perverted practice of protecting pedophiles and not disclosing the danger to the public. This case, if it's successful, will disclose the identities, the histories, and the whereabouts, not just of the hundreds of alleged perpetrators that we find from public sources, but the other perpetrators who remain secret, whose identities are hidden, on behalf of those children whose names we don't know, who are still suffering in silence. Tom Emmons' complaint says, enough is enough, it's time to do the right thing, and it's time to tell the truth. Thank you for doing this, Tom.
And I think it bears emphasis that the complaint that Mike Reck signed and that has been filed on behalf of Tom Emmons identifies the entire Catholic Conference of California, including every single bishop in every single diocese in California. we're focusing on the 3 dioceses today, but the reality is this is designed to force each and every single one of them to come clean and to get and seek a court order requiring them to do that. We have done that before. We have done that in Minnesota. We did that years ago on behalf of a courageous survivor and some others, Jim Keenan, and got a court to order the disclosure of all the offenders who reported to the bishop in the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis. And that resulted in a court order that ultimately started with the disclosure of 30, as we speak today, 91 offenders now posted on their website in the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis and counting. 91 and counting. And when we started, it was 0. It's 0 in Oakland. It's 0 in San Francisco. It's 15 in San Jose. We got work to do. Joelle Castex. Joelle, just by way of introduction, as a survivor, and has been an advocate and an outspoken one for many years. And Joelle, you stand with us today as you did in Los Angeles, and share with us what you think we need to know.
My name is Joelle Castex, and I'm the leader of a new survivor advocacy movement called Stop Survivors Taking on Predators. And I'm a survivor out of Orange County. And when I first came forward in 2002, I served on the Diocesan Lay Review Board, similar to review boards that you have here in Oakland and San Jose and San Francisco. Review boards that look over supposed evidence about child sexual abuse. Review boards that receive nothing from the bishops. Review boards that probably know nothing about the pictures of the men on the boards behind me. The time for reacting to sexual abuse is done. It is time for action. Action by strong survivors like Tom. Time for action about exposing predators who are on our streets right now being cut loose by the Archdiocese of San Francisco and the Diocese of Oakland and San Jose. It is time for law enforcement bodies to look deeply into what is going on, and time for strong civil action like this lawsuit today. The time for hand-wringing and apologies, and the time for the bishops to say we didn't know and times were different. Those times are done. Our children's lives are at stake. Survivors' lives are at stake. When I came forward in 2002, people told me that I was the only one. I was not. When Tom came forward last year, he thought he was the only one. He was not. It is time for strong action like this lawsuit. It is time for strong action from every survivor out there, and strong action can be as simple as picking up the phone. I implore anyone with information to come forward. I implore every parent to demand action. And I implore every law enforcement agency to do everything they can to investigate every piece of information that comes across their desk. Because it is no longer a time to react to abuse. It is time to act and to come forward and to make sure that the hundreds of men behind me are stopped, and that we make sure that the atrocities committed by these men never, ever happen again.
And Joelle Castex, the organization Stop Survivors Taking on Predators is designed to encourage survivors to come forward, become a part of the child protection movement, share their secrets safely with us and the advocates with whom you're working, and know that by doing that, others can be protected.
Correct, and working towards positive change, especially within the legislative arena, and to rally people to let them know that everyone can take positive action towards change, not reaction, but action, to protect children and to ensure that men like the predators behind me are stopped.
We also know that there is a significant Latino community that have been violated, and that is well known to all of us. And Beatrice Mendoza, why don't you come forward, hand me that, Bishop, and why don't you share with the folks in Spanish so that the community, in the Latino community, can be reached and hear this message and know that there is a chance, a difference can be made, your privacy can be protected, you can become a part of the child protection movement, and we really need to call these Catholic bishops out in the Bay Area.
Sí, sabemos que la comunidad de inmigrantes son muy vulnerables, entonces sabemos que muchas veces los sacerdotes van a esas iglesias donde hay inmigrantes y nosotros nombramos algo que se llama la solución geográfica. Eso es cuando mandan a los sacerdotes a otro país. Por ejemplo, mandan muchos a México después de que han abusado a muchos niños aquí. Entonces es tiempo de decir no. Nosotros tenemos el derecho de saber dónde están esos sacerdotes, dónde los está escondiendo la Iglesia Católica, dónde están viviendo ahorita, porque es muy importante, tenemos que salvar a los niños. Entonces, nosotros tenemos el derecho de pedirles a los diócesis de San Francisco y de Oakland que por favor den la lista de los sacerdotes que han sido acusados de abuso sexual o de mala conducta, porque ahorita sabemos el único que lo hizo fue San José, por eso estamos aquí. Pero le pedimos a la comunidad, si ustedes conocen a alguien que tal vez les haya pasado esto, por favor ayúdenos para que a correr la voz. Estamos aquí para ayudarles. Yo hablo su idioma porque sabemos que hay muchos afectados. Por ejemplo, muchos de los niños tal vez ya son grandes, fallecieron, se llevaron su secreto a la tumba. Es tiempo ya de que ellos digan su secreto y nosotros vamos a mantener la confidencia. Entonces, por favor, ayúdenos a correr la voz y para pedirle a la comunidad latina que por favor nos contacten. Gracias.
Thank you, Beatrice, and thank you to all the survivors who have shared their secret with us and who will always protect, but also make an effort joined with you and each of you that have to do everything we can, as we have today, to expose the peril, to use the court and the legal system to do so, and to require them to step into the light and out of the darkness, and to do something every day, as we are today, to stop the practice employed by each of the Catholic bishops in California, that conspiracy of silence, that conspiracy of secrecy, and that's why we're suing them on behalf of Tom Emmons for conspiracy to maintain and to continue to maintain in real time a serious public hazard. Thank you much to each survivor for your courage, and to you, Tom, as well. With that, are there any questions?
Talk about the climate right now, nationally, when it comes to cover-ups of abuse. What was recently released in Pennsylvania and how that impacts what's going on in California?
The question is the climate, and particularly the release in Pennsylvania, the grand jury report, that I think is another time of awakening. I've been in this space working with survivors for 35 years, so I've seen a lot of the changes that have been underway, and the changes that have been made by the Catholic Church hierarchy have been literally nothing. But the climate today is changing, and there's great hope and promise for a couple reasons. Survivors are sharing their secret and knowing that they can come forward and be protected and not hurt further. And they're exposing other offenders and those complicit in it. And the grand jury report in Pennsylvania was a real inspiration to all of us in the area, because they exposed in very vivid detail, not only there are 300 offenders and 1,000 victims identified by them, but they exposed what we knew to be the case for 30 years. There's a playbook, and every bishop in the country deploys that playbook, and they called it a playbook. And it's a 7-point playbook: transfer, recycle, keep secret, don't tell the truth to the parishioners, And so the climate is changing. And there's great hope and promise in that. But there's great sorrow and fear in the fact that they remain embedded in the past and strictly adherence to the secrecy that got them where they are. And as a result, bold and creative, legal and social action is required because there isn't any change among the Catholic bishops. There's promises, there's procedures, there's announcements of zero tolerance, and one of these dioceses said that they don't even know what zero tolerance is. And so the climate is changing, and it's largely because survivors are emboldened and now given permission in a way they hadn't before to take legal action. And the California legislature passed a bill. They got vetoed by Governor Brown a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that ultimately would have opened it up for survivors to take individual legal actions, to expose offenders and the dangerous practices. And I'm sure that bill will continue to move forward through the legislature, and we're hopeful that we'll continue to see public policy changes that protect kids instead of offenders, that protect kids instead of complacent bishops who are complicit in crimes. And the climate's getting better, and it is getting safer.
And there's another way that the political climate has changed because, there's another way the political climate has changed. The bishops haven't changed, but in Pennsylvania, we had a statewide elected law enforcement official who took a bold stand. And once he did that, he emboldened a bunch of other elected state law enforcement officials to do that. And all it takes is one. And then all of a sudden we have the feds who are now looking into it. So as long as we have one brave person willing to stick their neck out, other people are willing to do that too, and that's all it takes.
That was inspirational, but that didn't necessarily affect Mr. Adams' decision to come forward.
No, actually, he came forward before that, I think. Yeah, he did. And it's also hopeful that there are now 13 different top law enforcement officials in different states that are either investigating or seizing or requiring disclosures of the very files that we're seeking in this lawsuit. And so that we have law enforcement engaged in this effort in a way we never have seen before. So that is changing. Yes, sir?
And so what if the reaction from the diocese, especially San Jose, which is released name, says, well, we knew about the other people on the list, but we didn't feel there was enough evidence for those people, just the people that came forward. You're bound to get that. You're bound to have heard that before, and you're bound to hear it again.
Well, the question is what about those bishops that do come forward with additional names, either now or as a result of this? And what do you say to them? I say to those bishops, every time you tell the truth, it's a step in the right direction. Instead of hiding and lying and deceiving and keeping secrets. And every disclosure that gets made, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in the future, it is a step in the right direction because every time the truth is revealed, another child may be protected from an offender not known before. And for those bishops that claim there wasn't enough evidence, we say to you, you're not the ones to decide that. You need to turn that over to law enforcement professionals for them to decide it. You can't be the decider of who you want to believe and who you don't. And that's why when the bishops speak to who the credible accused priests are that they're going to disclose is not a trustworthy statement. Time has shown to us that their own mechanisms, their own loyalties, their own protocols are always to protect themselves and the predators. And thus, you got to turn it over to professionals and allow the professionals to look at those files. And that's why we're seeking them in this case.
The Archdiocese of San Francisco said to me, they won't have a formal response, but we will certainly review his list of names released today, even though we are very uncertain how his list was assembled and with what criteria. We're going to go on to meet with parishioners and decide course of action.
The Archdiocese issued a statement today saying they'll look at the list and they're not certain about how we assembled it. Well, let me tell them and the Archbishop. We assembled it based on public data. We assembled it because we're rigorous about trying to protect kids. We assembled it because we know there's public data that everybody on that list has been publicly accused. And we're pretty rigorous about this because kids are not being protected by you, Archbishop, and you got a chance to respond to this lawsuit tomorrow by doing the right thing. We invite you to do it.
And it's pretty sad that you have to ask bishops to tell the truth.
Well, it is sad that we have to be here, but we are, and we will pursue this with the kind of rigor we need to, and we invite them to do the right thing. If they want to do it voluntarily, all we want is the truth and the kids to be protected. It's that simple. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about, these are allegations and instances of abuse that go over several decades. How recent are the most recent examples?
We don't, I can't say the most recent examples. I know that there are at least 2 offenders who were convicted.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Alex M. Azar II.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today. It is an honor to be here today and to welcome President Trump to the Department of Health and Human Services. This is the first time in more than a decade that we have had a president here in the Humphrey Building. As many of you have heard me say, it is the privilege of a lifetime to get to serve here at HHS with this incredible team that we have here on this absolutely vital mission of protecting and enhancing the health and well-being of all Americans. It is an especially great privilege to work with and for someone who thinks as boldly as President Trump does about how to improve the health and well-being of the American people. Mr. President, I know I speak for my HHS colleagues to say that it is an honor to work on your healthcare priorities, from lowering drug prices and securing better value in healthcare to increasing insurance choices and combating the opioid crisis. Your leadership has helped us propose bold solutions, begin implementing them, and to see results. Nowhere has that been more true than on drug pricing. In just the first 5 months since HHS released the American Patients First Blueprint, President Trump has taken more action to bring down the high price of prescription drugs than any other previous president in history. I can tell the American people that this is an issue the president cares deeply, personally, and passionately about. Every single day he is fighting to bring down the high cost of prescription drugs in this country. Almost every day he is telling me to bring down the high cost of prescription drugs in this country. And that involves direct personal intervention. The president and I meet on drug price increases, and he will not hesitate to call or have me call CEOs when prices are increased, when they're out of control, and his actions have an effect. They deliver results, and we're also changing the entire system of how we pay for drugs in this country. Today is one very important part of that change, but there's more coming. This is not the end of the road or the end of the journey. There is more action in progress, more coming. It is terrific to be able to work for a president who's got the courage to take on special interests, and there are special interests here that are very deep and solidified, and that will challenge the actions we're taking today and will challenge the actions that we're going to continue to take. But this president will continue to fight every single day to put American patients first and bring down drug prices. And with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a big day. It's a very important day. Thank you. Please. Thank you very much, Secretary Azar, for your tremendous leadership. This really is an important day for me. I've been talking about drug price reductions for a long time. And now we're doing things that nobody was, let's say, because I'm speaking on behalf of all of us, bold enough to do. And they're going to have a tremendous impact. I also want to thank FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb. Scott, stand up, Scott. You've done such an incredible job. Really incredible job. And CMS Administrator Seema Verma for joining us. Seema, thank you very much. Seema, great job. Great job. I'm thrilled to be here at the Department of Health and Human Services, and I want to thank everybody. I understand that it's been decades since the last president came here, and I'm very surprised that President Obama didn't come here for Obamacare. Explain that one to me, but he didn't. But it's a great honor to be here. You do an incredible job. You really do an incredible job, so I thank you. Since the day I took office, I have made reducing drug prices one of my highest priorities. Last year, the FDA approved more than 1,000 low-cost generics, the most in the history of our country. This year, we beat that record, approving even more generics. These new approvals are leading to cheaper, competitive alternatives for life-saving drugs like the EpiPen, saving Americans almost $9 billion a year last year alone. Since releasing my drug pricing blueprint in May, 16 drug companies reduced their list prices, rolled back increases, or froze their prices for the rest of the year. We called a few of those companies recently where they raised their prices, And I guess maybe it was one of the times that I realized how powerful the presidency is, because they immediately rolled their prices back to where they started. And those companies know who we're talking about, and we appreciate it very much. Earlier this month, I signed 2 bills to lower the cost of prescription drugs. The Know the Lowest Price Act. Know the Lowest Price Act. It's a big thing. And the Patient Right to Know Act. And by the way, put those 2 together and you have a complicated deal. Sounds simple, but that one's not. Ending the unjust gag clauses once and for all, where you'd go into a drugstore and the pharmacist wouldn't even be allowed to talk about alternatives or pricing. How ridiculous is that? Think of it, how ridiculous. That's not going to take place anymore. And actually, the pharmacists are very happy about it. Patients now have the right to know the lowest price and the most affordable alternative available at their pharmacy. Today, we are here to announce another bold and historic action to bring down the price of prescription drugs. With the action I am unveiling today, the United States will finally begin to confront one of the most unfair practices, almost unimaginable that it hasn't been taken care of long before this, that drives up the cost of medicine in the United States. We're taking aim at the global freeloading that forces American consumers to subsidize lower prices in foreign countries through higher prices in our country. And I've seen it for years, and I never understood. Same company, same box, same pill, made in the exact same location, and you'll go to some countries and it would be 20% the cost of what we pay, and in some cases much less than that. And I'd say, why is this? I never knew that I would be able to stand here before you and have a chance to fix it, and that's what we're doing. We're fixing it. That's called real-life experience, I guess. For decades, other countries have rigged the system so that American patients are charged much more, and in some cases much, much more, for the exact same drug. In other words, Americans pay more so that other countries can pay less. Very simple. That's exactly what it is. It's wrong, it's unfair, it's not surprising. I've seen trade deals where it's far more costly to us than even this, and we're changing them also. Foreign countries even threaten to disrespect our patents if they are not given cheaper prices on drugs. So they're not going to even look at the patents. They've been very, very disrespectful previously to our country and to all of the things we stand for. And especially they would disrespect patents when it came to American-made drugs. The American middle class is effectively funding virtually all drug research and development for the entire planet. So we are paying for it. We are subsidizing it. Everybody else is benefiting, and they are paying nothing toward research and development. The world reaps the benefits of American genius and innovation, while American citizens, and especially our great seniors, who are hit the hardest, pick up the tab, but no longer. Here are just a few examples. For one eye medication that helps prevent blindness, Medicare pays over $1 billion a year. If we paid the prices other nations pay, we'd bring the $1 billion down to $187 million a year. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? We spend more than $1 billion a year on 2 drugs to treat bone disease, but we could save more than $800 billion. Think of that, $800 billion saving for our seniors by paying the prices other countries pay. Nothing special, just the prices that other countries pay. That's the way the United States has been disrespected for too long in too many ways. One common cancer drug is nearly 7 times as expensive for Medicare as it is for other countries. This is a highly used and very effective drug. and it's 7 times more expensive. Not fair. This happens because the government pays whatever price the drug companies set without any negotiation whatsoever. Not anymore. Under our new plan, the Department of Health and Human Services would allow Medicare to determine the price it pays for certain drugs based on the cheaper prices paid by other nations. Some people call it favored nations clauses. We have them in business. We have them in a lot of different contracts that I've seen over the years and been part of. Favored nations. So think of that. So we're paying a price based on the price that other nations are paying. That's what we're going to pay. No longer 7 times more, no longer 10 times, 11 times, even 12 times more. I've seen examples paying the same price. Talking about billions and billions of savings to people, to people. We will no longer accept the inflated prices being charged to our seniors. I had a congressman, respected congressman, come to the Oval Office and say, "Sir, for my constituents, drug pricing is more important than health care." And I said, "Explain that to me." But he actually said, drug price, I've never forgotten the expression, drug pricing, we know how important health care is, drug pricing is even more important for my constituents. At long last, the drug companies in foreign countries will be held accountable for how they rigged the system against American consumers. This is a revolutionary change. Nobody's had the courage to do it, or they just didn't want to do it. And this is a change for the people. This is not a change for industry or for companies or for pharma. This is a change for the people. It will be substantially a reduction in drug prices for our people and our senior citizens. Tremendous, tremendous difference. Our plan will also fix a broken payment system where doctors are reimbursed more if they prescribe a much more expensive drug. Under our new proposed payment system, doctors will be paid a flat rate. Now, when you think of it, it's like being a contractor or anything else. If it's an expensive drug or a less expensive drug, it's the same. It doesn't take any more. And I think this will be good in terms of the pricing of the drug. It'll be fantastic for that. But it'll also be much better for patients, and it very well may be better for doctors. This follows other significant actions that we have taken to protect Medicare for our great seniors. We have given the plans that serve more than 45 million seniors on Medicare Part D and 20 million seniors on Medicare Advantage new tools to negotiate lower prices. Thanks to our actions this year, premiums for both Medicare Part D and Medicare Advantage have, and I'll give you a word that you haven't ever heard, have gone down. You've never heard that word. True. Gone down. And now they're going to go substantially down. Sadly, a majority of Democrats in the House of Representatives have co-sponsored a very socialist health care plan that would destroy Medicare, terminate Medicare Advantage, and outlaw the employer-sponsored health care plans of 157 million Americans. We think that they're going to actually come along with us when they see what we're doing, we think. We hope. It's something that makes no sense any other way. So we really think that can be bipartisan. It happened to be a Democrat that told me how important drug pricing was. It wasn't a Republican in this case, it was a Democrat. Under this administration, we will always protect Medicare for our great seniors, and we will always protect Americans with pre-existing conditions, always. In every action we take, we are putting America first. And this is very much about putting America first. We get tired of having people go to other countries to literally fill prescriptions, and you know where I'm talking about. We're fighting for lower drug prices, which will now be automatic. It will be automatic and very substantial. Lower premiums, where we've done a really good job with healthcare in bringing the premiums down to a much lower level, much more acceptable level. And we're going to be soon announcing some things that will really have a tremendous and positive impact on healthcare also. And better healthcare, very importantly, for every single American. So I just want to thank everybody in this room. You're outstanding people. I know how hard you work. I know how important your work is, how brilliant your work has to be, and how complex a job you have. You have a very complex job. You have everything. You have probably every single element of life in the work you do. But I just want to let you know the American people very much appreciate, have great respect for you. I think they'll even have more. That'll go up very significantly when they see their drug prices falling. They're going to say, what's happened? They must have made a mistake. It's true. They're going to go up to the counter. They're going to say, did you make a mistake? Some won't say that. They'll just think it. And some might say, did you make a mistake? But you're going to see a big reduction. I want to thank everybody very much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you.